Hi, I hope you guys are all doing well. If this is your first time visiting my channel, my name is Tiffany. I am in my late 30s and my husband and I have been trying to conceive for 9 years and we are finally pregnant. I am so incredibly happy and wanted to do a quick update video for anyone that's been following along on our fertility journey, or if you've just stumbled upon this video and you yourself are going through infertility or IVF. But I am currently 37 weeks, so feeling very pregnant and ready for this baby to make their debut. I did not have the energy and bandwidth to put together a video before now, so here it is, better late than never. I decided to make a part 3 video as part of this series documenting our fertility journey. If you are interested in learning all about what led to our frozen embryo transfer, I would recommend watching part 1 and 2, but I'll try to quickly summarize what happened for you. I have low AMH and diminished ovarian reserve, and my husband also has male factor infertility, and we were not aware of the extent of our infertility until much later in the process. There was also a pandemic that was kind of thrown in the middle of this whole mess, so delayed things further. But essentially we did 2.5 rounds of IVF, or stimulation cycles, for egg retrievals. We did this at 2 different clinics in Southern California. We got 1 embryo from each clinic and did ICSI both times. Our only embryo from our first clinic fertilized but didn't make it to day 3. And then our only embryo from our second clinic, we chose to have frozen on day 2 to prevent what happened last time. And that embryo had 6 cells already on day 2 when it was frozen, so that was kind of exciting. And that's where I left off in my previous video. So there were a couple procedures I needed to do in between my egg retrieval and my first frozen embryo transfer. And unfortunately, we were having to make the commute from Las Vegas to Southern California for all of these procedures, which wasn't fun, but ultimately was totally worth it. So the first procedure I had to do was a hysteroscopy. I might not be pronouncing that correctly. And during this procedure, typically I think what they do is fill your uterus with fluid, put a camera in there so they can see what's going on. They might be looking for things like fibroids or polyps. They may try to scrape away at these fibroids, polyps, and maybe even like take a biopsy of a polyp, make sure that there's nothing cancerous going on. And it was recommended that I do this because they found kind of what looked like a flat polyp in my uterus, and it ended up being nothing. Thank goodness it was just like a little bit of tissue left over from my last menstrual cycle. So luckily I was cleared to proceed with the next procedure. So then the next cycle, or it might have been the one after that, I did an ERA. ERA stands for endometrial receptivity analysis. And basically this is like a mock transfer cycle. You're basically taking the same medications you would be taking as if you were doing a real transfer. But then at the end of the transfer, instead of doing your actual embryo transfer, they will take like a small biopsy of your uterine lining to test if the timing of the transfer would have been correct had you done a real transfer. And this is based on like your progesterone levels. So if the timing comes back a little off, they might want to have you do your real cycle with you taking your progesterone for longer or a shorter period of time. It's to optimize the timing of your transfer. So this was recommended to me because we had such a limited amount of embryos. I mean, we literally just had the 1 embryo, and it was to help maximize our odds of success. So although the data is kind of mixed on whether ERAs are ultimately worth it or not on paper, I was seeing so many women in these infertility groups that I am a part of on Facebook and Reddit and that sort of thing. They were saying that they didn't have success until they did an ERA. And this was enough for me to say yes and trust that my doctor recommended it for our situation. So we went ahead and did an ERA. And when I got my results back, the timing was spot on. So luckily we didn't have to make any adjustments for our upcoming transfer. So then we were finally ready for our first frozen embryo transfer, which was so exciting to us because we'd never gotten this far in the process. Even though it was obnoxious to have to take all the medications during the ERA process, it did definitely help prepare us for how to do the progesterone and oil shots, which are like notorious for not being fun at all. I had my partner help me with my shots, and so we felt totally ready to go for our transfer, which was a nice feeling to have. At my clinic, they don't allow partners to be in the room with the patient during the actual transfer process, and that was definitely a bummer to find out, but ultimately it ended up being okay. Our day 2 embryo survived the thaw, and I think actually also divided into 7 cells by the time we did our actual transfer. The procedure was quick, and they had a screen I could look at so I could see in real time where they were putting the embryo. So then after that, I rested in the recovery area, spoke with the doctor for a little bit, and then I think I must have called my husband and talked to him for a little bit, but I also had prepared some funny videos on my phone because there is some data that proves that if you laugh and kind of have these endorphins and good feelings after a transfer, it could potentially help your embryo stick. So I was willing to try it, and even though I was only back there recovering for maybe like 15 minutes or so, I was entertained and distracted. And then after that, we went back to our hotel and rested for a while, and then went back out to have a nice dinner at downtown Disney because Disneyland is like our favorite place to be. So we ate at Din Tai Fung at downtown Disney, and I got this appetizer side of it's like a mountain of kale, and it was really good. And I just remember thinking, like, baby needs kale. We gotta have these good leafy greens and things in my system. Maybe it'll help, you never know. And then we also got like the soup dumplings, and it was a nice dinner to have. And then we walked around downtown Disney, try to look around at all the things that have changed since we moved from Southern California. And then we drove home back to Vegas the next day. So that brings us to the 2-week wait time period. Not a fun 2 weeks if you've ever tried to conceive. I'll just say that, especially if you have had to do something like IVF. I was trying to continue to eat well, and specifically having a few things that I don't normally have on like a super regular basis, like probiotics, pomegranate juice. I was trying to have like a larger amount of leafy greens like spinach, kale, that sort of thing, and some light exercise like walking when I could. I was continuing the medications, so like the progesterone and oil, and I think estrogen as well. And you typically have to take these medications until you get a negative pregnancy test or you make it to week 10 of your pregnancy. So I wanted to wait until day 12 post-transfer to do a pregnancy test. I did not make it to day 12. I ended up testing on day 8. And mind you, this is a day 2 embryo. So yeah, I don't know. That was risky. But I ended up seeing a faint positive line, and I just was in such shock. When you are dealing with infertility and things like IVF, there's like no element of surprise when this finally works, right? So I had been dreaming of all these ways I could tell my husband when I finally got pregnant, but it just goes all out the window when you are, he was very aware I was doing an embryo transfer. There's no element of surprise. So I think that night when he came home from work, I just was like standing there and I think I just told him, I don't remember if I was holding it, but I was just like, I think it worked. The line, there's a line. It's very faint, but there's a line. And so we were just so incredibly happy and nervous, apprehensive of course, because we don't know if this is going to be a successful pregnancy or not, or if the tests are accurate. So lots of different emotions in there. But then I think the next day I did a first response test, and it was even darker. So each day progressed. I was taking tests every day, and the line was getting darker, which felt it was like the happiest moment I remember for a very long time. So I did not hesitate to tell my IVF friends, a lot of whom were doing IVF at the same time as me, so we had overlapping procedures and even pregnancies, and it was very exciting to just see that they were so excited for us as well. And I believe we waited until week 12 to tell our immediate family members because we wanted to wait until we had the ultrasound that showed like the fetal pole. There was a heartbeat that we could hear, and make sure everything was okay. So when we got to that point in time, our family members were so excited and started to cry, and it was such a momentous time for all of us because not only are we becoming parents for the first time after so long, but also 3 out of the 4 of our parents are becoming grandparents for the first time, and our brothers are becoming uncles for the first time. So everyone's like graduating and being promoted to a new title in the family, and it's so exciting for all of us. But with that said, there is still so much shock and like PTSD you have in this process after struggling for so long. You just worry, is this baby gonna stick around? Is everything gonna be okay? Is it okay for me to like celebrate and be happy? Like, how do I deal with this emotionally? In our situation, we did not have a genetically tested embryo, so we didn't actually know if it was like a genetically normal embryo. And so I was particularly nervous about the anatomy scan at week 20, where they do blood work and also look and make sure that they are physically seeing what they should see and making sure that there are not like genetic abnormalities that are coming back from the blood work that might show that there's a major problem. So I was very anxious for that week 20 appointment, and luckily everything ended up being okay, and we're just so incredibly grateful. It was such a relief to kind of be able to breathe a little bit easier. And I will say that with each milestone along the way, it's like I felt just a little bit better, but I still couldn't thoroughly enjoy my pregnancy because there was just so much fear that anything could still happen. And I know that that can be true whether you've gone through infertility or not. It's just a normal pregnancy. But I feel like there's this added element of, well, I've been through all this stuff and nothing was working until just now. So you carry that fear with you, and it's not particularly fun. So it's like you have to have this kind of like neutral mindset of like, don't get too excited and be too happy, but also don't assume the worst. You kind of have to just be neutral in the middle. And that's just a weird mental place to be, I think. But anyways, baby was measuring a little bit behind early on, so I was a little nervous about that. I will also say that I have been extremely lucky in that I had a very easy entire pregnancy, honestly. The first trimester, I did not have the standard kind of things that a lot of people have. Things like nausea were pretty mild. I had a little bit of it, but it really wasn't bad. I never ended up throwing up, which I know people would probably want to strangle me when I say that, but we went through hell to get here. It's okay for me to say, hey, this actually went okay, and it was nice. It was a nice relief. It was like the universe was throwing us a bone, like, hey, I'm gonna make sure your pregnancy is like not awful. So that was nice. However, I have had strong food aversions almost this entire pregnancy. They kind of vary in intensity, but what is inconvenient and not great health-wise is that I have not wanted vegetables. So not consuming as many vegetables as I would like because they just sound kind of disgusting to me. But other than that, it has been pretty easygoing, and I am very, very lucky. But I was worried about passing the glucose tests, so the gestational diabetes tests. I barely passed the 1-hour glucose test. I think my clinic, the cutoff was 140 is the number you want to try to be under, and I think I was 138. So they were like, okay, it's fine, you passed, but I know that some clinics, that number's actually lower. So like if I were at that clinic, I would have failed and then needed to do the 3-hour glucose test. So I didn't want to complain about that. I passed it, but I've kind of in the back of my mind been like, it seems like I'm sort of borderline gestational diabetes, and I should probably not be consuming too much sugar and carbs. It's like you go through this whole process and then you're like, I'm gonna eat so well and do all these things right, and then pregnancy, even though my pregnancy has been easy and has felt easy, the dietary stuff has just been so hard. It's like you just wanna get something down and not put too much stock in what it is. So I have consumed more sugar and carbs than I would like to admit. So that, in that regard, I have struggled. Additionally, because I am over 35, it was an IVF pregnancy, I'm considered high risk. So I've had to have additional appointments and have even had to have twice a week appointments starting at week 32 because my OB wants me to come in twice a week solely because of IVF. So that has not been so fun. But on the flip side, you know, we are able to kind of more closely monitor baby and how they're doing. And at some point during one of our growth scans, we learned that baby is no longer measuring behind, but they're in fact measuring ahead. So I think baby was in the 76th percentile, and this is because baby's belly was measuring pretty big. I think like in the 99th percentile, so very round, plump belly. Everything else kind of measuring normal-ish, maybe a little bit above, except for the femur. So baby's not even gonna be tall or anything, just like a short, plump baby, shaped a lot like me. And then since that time, baby has fluctuated between like the 79th percentile, the 96th, the 88th percentile, and now they're in like the 98th percentile, and I'm like, oh my gosh, because I'm only 2 weeks away from my induction date, and now I'm panicking. And baby is gigantic. Like baby's belly is still like 99th percentile, the head is big. And these are wonderful, wonderful problems to have. Don't get me wrong. I'm just getting very nervous about delivering because I was sort of hoping that I could deliver this baby vaginally, and it's looking like maybe that might not necessarily be the best option for me, but we will hopefully come to a decision here in the next week and a half. We'll have some more answers, some more accurate measurements, hopefully. It's tough because with these measurements and estimates, like they can be wrong. So it's hard to know exactly what to expect. Like you can't expect anything with your birthing experience. Like it could really go any way. But I guess my biggest fear is laboring for hours and hours and hours and then still needing an emergency C-section. So we're just gonna have to hope for the best and see what happens. But ultimately, despite all these fears, I am so incredibly happy and grateful to make it this far and to know that baby's okay. Like these are the most important things. So I'm honestly still in shock. I still have days where I wake up and like look at myself in the mirror despite having a gigantic belly and just being like, I can't believe this worked. I can't believe we're pregnant after all this time. Like how lucky are we that this actually worked? Like it's a miracle. This is our miracle baby and we're so excited to meet them. So, closing thoughts on everything leading up to this point. I'll just say that if you have been on a similar fertility journey and you're finally pregnant after all this time, it is completely normal and natural to have a lot of fear in this process, but try to find the joy in your pregnancy and just try to savor those moments and just try to take it day by day or milestone by milestone. If you try to think too far ahead, I think it'll just make you go crazy. And I think I've felt that throughout this entire infertility journey, is that it's like you can't plan for anything. You just kind of have to take it one step at a time and hope for the best. And also, it's okay to complain about the things that are uncomfortable and difficult throughout your pregnancy journey. That doesn't mean that you're not grateful to be pregnant. Like you can be both uncomfortable and slightly miserable at the same time as being so ecstatic that you're actually pregnant. You can feel all these things at once. It's okay. So don't be hard on yourself about that. And with that said, I probably won't be doing another update video for a while. We will have a fresh newborn baby to take care of, and it'll be the most wonderful distraction in the world. And regarding our fertility journey in the future, I don't know if it'll be an option for us to have another baby. Obviously, if we want to try again, we're going to have to go through this entire process again because we don't have any other backup embryos. We may end up trying and we'll just kind of have to see if things are going okay or not. So it's possible there may be more IVF updates in the future, but I can't guarantee anything. We are just gonna focus on just relishing being first-time parents, and that's that. If you are a fellow IVF warrior or you are just embarking on your IVF journey, I wish you the very best. This is just such a brutal thing to have to experience, but I hope that your miracle baby is just around the corner. It takes so much strength to go through this, so I just truly wish you the very, very best in this process. And with that said, thank you so much for watching. If you have been keeping track of our fertility journey this whole time, I appreciate you sticking with us. If this is the first video you're seeing, I hope that you also have gotten something out of it. And special shout out to our friends and family who have just inundated, how do you say that? To all our friends and family who have just showered us with so much love and support and have just been equally as enthusiastic about this baby as we are. We see you and we feel all this love, and we are so incredibly grateful for our lovely big support system that has helped us in getting ready for baby. So we thank you. Thanks again for watching. I wish you all the very best, and I hope to see you again later.